Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. When the clock strikes midnight and a new year begins, what really changes? The calendar flips, the numbers shift, but the real question is this: do you change? Because transformation doesn't happen in a moment of noise. It happens in the quiet decision to be better than you were yesterday. We live in a world that celebrates overnight success, but heaven knows growth doesn't work that way. Growth is earned. It's built brick by brick, step by step, choice by choice. And the truth is, you don't need to reinvent your entire life to change it. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to become more intentional about becoming who you were created to be. Imagine this: improving yourself by just 15% every single day. Not perfection, progress. Not pressure, purpose. 15% in how you think. 15% in how you speak to yourself. 15% in how you show up when no one is watching. Small increases fueled by discipline, guided by faith, and multiplied by consistency. God didn't place greatness in you by accident. That restlessness you feel, that hunger for more, that's not dissatisfaction, that's a divine signal. It's the call to rise, to stretch, to sharpen what's already inside you. Every day you wake up is an opportunity to honor the gift you've been given, not by doing everything at once, but by doing something today. 2026 isn't asking you to run faster than everyone else. It's asking you to walk forward with intention, courage, and belief. Because when you commit to improving yourself just a little each day, you don't just change your habits, you change your destiny. Progress over perfection is the mindset that frees you from the paralysis of waiting to be flawless before you begin. Too many people delay their growth because they are obsessed with getting everything right the first time. They tell themselves they will start when they are more confident, more prepared, more qualified, or more certain. But growth does not respond to hesitation. Growth responds to movement. The truth is, perfection is not a requirement for progress. It is often the enemy of it. Every meaningful journey begins imperfectly. No one starts strong, polished, or fully formed. Strength is built through repetition. Wisdom is earned through mistakes. Confidence is developed through showing up again after falling short. When you chase perfection, you place unrealistic expectations on yourself that were never meant to be carried. When you choose progress, you give yourself permission to learn, to adjust, and to keep going even when the outcome is not ideal. Perfection focuses on the destination. Progress focuses on the direction. One demands immediate results, the other honors consistent effort. Progress understands that improvement is layered, that today's discipline plants seeds you may not see tomorrow, but will surely harvest later. It is the decision to move forward, even when the steps feel small, even when the growth feels slow, even when the results are not visible yet. There is a quiet power in choosing progress because it builds resilience. When you are committed to progress, failure does not define you, it refines you. A setback becomes feedback. A mistake becomes instruction. Instead of quitting, you recalibrate. Instead of judging yourself harshly, you ask better questions. What can I learn? What can I do differently tomorrow? That mindset turns obstacles into opportunities for growth rather than reasons to stop. Progress also requires humility. It demands that you accept where you are without letting that acceptance turn into complacency. It means acknowledging your weaknesses without being ashamed of them. It means understanding that growth is a process, not a performance. When you stop trying to appear perfect and start trying to improve, you create space for authenticity, honesty, and real transformation. Daily progress compounds in ways that perfection never could. Small, intentional actions repeated consistently build momentum. Reading a few pages a day shapes your thinking. Practicing a skill for a short time sharpens your ability. Making better choices in how you speak, work, and respond gradually reshapes your character. These changes may seem insignificant in isolation, but over time they create a version of you that is stronger, wiser, and more disciplined than before. Faith plays a vital role in progress because it reminds you that growth is not solely dependent on your strength. Faith teaches patience in the process and trust in the outcome. It anchors you when progress feels slow and reassures you that unseen work still matters. When you believe that your efforts are aligned with a greater purpose, consistency becomes easier and perseverance becomes natural. Choosing progress over perfection is a daily decision. It is waking up and committing to be slightly better than yesterday, not for applause, not for validation, but because growth honors the gift of life you have been given. It is understanding that becoming who you are meant to be does not happen in one moment of brilliance, but in many ordinary moments of effort, discipline, and belief repeated day after day. Daily discipline creates destiny because what you repeatedly do shapes who you eventually become. Destiny is not a sudden event or a single breakthrough moment. It is the accumulation of choices made when motivation fades and no one is watching. Discipline is the bridge between intention and outcome. You can have vision, talent, and faith, but without daily discipline, those gifts remain dormant. Discipline turns potential into performance through consistent action. Every day presents a decision point. You either do what is easy or what is necessary. Discipline is choosing what is necessary even when it feels uncomfortable. It is showing up when excuses would be more convenient. It is honoring commitments when emotions say otherwise. These small acts of obedience to your goals may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they carve the path your life follows. Destiny is shaped in ordinary moments. It is shaped when you wake up on time, when you manage your focus, when you control your reactions, and when you stay faithful to routines that align with your purpose. What you practice daily becomes automatic, and what becomes automatic defines your direction. Discipline does not rely on motivation because motivation is inconsistent. Discipline relies on decision, and decision creates consistency. There is power in repetition. When you discipline your mind to think constructively, your thoughts begin to work for you instead of against you. When you discipline your body through healthy habits, energy and endurance increase. When you discipline your time, priorities become clearer and distractions lose their grip. Each disciplined action strengthens the next, creating momentum that carries you forward, even on difficult days. Faith deepens discipline by giving it meaning. Discipline without purpose feels like punishment, but discipline rooted in faith feels like stewardship. It is the understanding that your time, talents, and opportunities are entrusted to you for a reason. Faith reminds you that consistency honors the calling placed on your life. It teaches you to be faithful in small things, trusting that growth is happening even when results are not immediately visible. Discipline also builds self-respect. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, confidence grows. You begin to trust your own word. You stop seeing yourself as someone who starts and stops and begin to see yourself as someone who follows through. This internal shift changes how you approach challenges. Instead of doubting your ability to endure, you lean on the habits you have already proven you can sustain. The absence of discipline always comes at a cost. Missed opportunities, wasted time, and unrealized potential are often the result of inconsistent habits rather than lack of ability. Discipline protects you from regret by aligning daily actions with long-term vision. It narrows your focus so that energy is not scattered but invested where it matters most. Discipline is not about control for the sake of control. It is about freedom. When your actions are aligned with your values, you are no longer driven by impulse or circumstance. You become intentional. You respond instead of react. Over time, disciplined living reshapes identity. You no longer chase outcomes. You become the kind of person whose habits naturally produce them. Every disciplined choice is a vote for the future you desire. Each day you commit to what matters. You are quietly constructing the life you will one day live. Destiny is not found. It is built through daily discipline, one choice at a time. Small improvements compound into greatness because growth is rarely the result of one dramatic leap. It is the outcome of consistent, incremental progress applied over time. People often underestimate what small changes can do because they focus on immediate results instead of long-term impact. Yet the most powerful transformations come from simple actions, repeated daily with intention and belief. A single small improvement may feel insignificant on its own. Reading a few pages, adjusting one habit, refining one skill, choosing a better response in a difficult moment. None of these actions feel life-changing in the moment, but when they are practiced consistently, they begin to stack. Each small improvement becomes a building block, and those blocks eventually form something strong, stable, and unrecognizable from where you started. Compounding works quietly. It does not demand attention or applause. It simply requires consistency. When you improve just a little each day, you reduce the pressure to be extraordinary all at once. You replace overwhelm with focus. You shift your mindset from trying to do everything to committing to do something. This approach makes growth sustainable and keeps you moving forward even when progress feels slow. Small improvements also build confidence. Each win, no matter how minor, reinforces the belief that change is possible. You begin to trust the process because you see evidence of progress. This confidence fuels further action, creating a cycle where effort leads to improvement, improvement leads to belief, and belief leads to consistency. Over time, this cycle transforms how you see yourself and what you believe you are capable of achieving. Faith strengthens the compounding process by encouraging patience. Faith reminds you that not all growth is visible immediately. Just as seeds take time to break through the soil, personal development often happens beneath the surface before it shows externally. Faith allows you to stay committed when results are delayed, trusting that every small effort is contributing to something greater than what you can currently see. Small improvements refine discipline and character. They teach you to value process over outcome. Instead of waiting for motivation, you focus on showing up. Instead of measuring success by dramatic change, you measure it by consistency. This shift in perspective reduces frustration and increases endurance. You stop quitting because the progress feels too slow and start appreciating the fact that progress is happening at all. Greatness is not a matter of intensity, it is a matter of consistency. Many people burn out because they try to change everything at once. Small improvements protect you from burnout by keeping growth manageable. They allow you to integrate new habits into your life naturally rather than forcing drastic changes that are difficult to sustain. Over time, these manageable changes reshape your identity and your standards. Compounding also creates momentum. Each improvement makes the next one easier. As habits form, resistance decreases. What once required effort becomes routine. This momentum accelerates growth without increasing strain. You are no longer pushing against yourself. You are moving with yourself. Progress begins to feel natural rather than forced. The beauty of small improvements is that they are always accessible. You do not need ideal conditions, perfect timing, or extraordinary resources. You simply need the willingness to be intentional today. Every day offers opportunities to improve how you think, how you work, how you speak, and how you respond. These daily choices shape your future far more than occasional bursts of effort. When small improvements are guided by purpose, they align with something greater than personal ambition. They become acts of stewardship, honoring the potential placed within you. Over time, what started as minor adjustments becomes a life marked by growth, strength, and consistency, proving that greatness is not built overnight, but compounded daily through small, faithful steps. Faith fuels consistency because belief gives meaning to effort when results are delayed. Consistency is not sustained by motivation alone. Motivation rises and falls with circumstances. Faith steps in when emotions fluctuate and progress feels slow. It anchors commitment to something deeper than feelings, reminding you why you started and why continuing still matters. When actions are rooted in faith, they are no longer dependent on visible outcomes. You continue to show up not because you feel rewarded, but because you trust the process. Faith allows you to work without immediate evidence, to invest without instant return. It is the confidence that what you are building today is not wasted, even if you cannot yet see its impact. Consistency requires patience, and patience is a spiritual discipline. Faith trains you to wait without quitting. It teaches you that growth often happens in silence, in routines that feel repetitive and unremarkable. These quiet moments of obedience shape character and strengthen resolve. When faith leads, consistency becomes an act of trust rather than a test of willpower. Faith also reframes struggle. Instead of viewing difficulty as a sign to stop, faith sees resistance as part of refinement. It shifts your perspective from asking why something is hard to understanding what the challenge is developing within you. This mindset allows consistency to survive adversity. You stop interpreting obstacles as failure and start recognizing them as preparation. Consistency built on faith is resilient. It does not collapse under disappointment or delay. When progress seems invisible, faith reassures you that unseen work is still work. It reminds you that effort aligned with purpose is never empty. This assurance keeps you moving forward when logic suggests giving up and comfort tempts you to settle. Faith deepens commitment by connecting daily habits to a greater purpose. Ordinary actions take on spiritual weight when they are offered with intention. Showing up, staying disciplined, improving gradually, and serving faithfully become expressions of belief. Consistency becomes less about self-improvement and more about honoring the responsibility entrusted to you. There is strength in trusting the process, even when the pace feels slow. Faith quiets the urge to rush and the pressure to compare. It allows you to focus on obedience rather than outcomes. When consistency is fueled by faith, comparison loses its power. You no longer measure progress against others, but against your own commitment to growth. Faith also restores you when consistency falters. It replaces condemnation with grace. Instead of quitting after a setback, you return with humility and renewed focus. Faith teaches that falling does not disqualify you, staying down does. This understanding protects consistency from perfectionism and keeps you engaged in the process of growth. Consistency grounded in faith shapes identity. Over time, repeated faithful actions build confidence and clarity. You begin to see yourself as someone who persists, someone who is dependable, someone who finishes what they start. This internal transformation is just as powerful as external results. It reinforces belief in your ability to endure and grow. Faith reminds you that consistency is not about control, but about trust. It is the willingness to take the next step without needing the full picture. It is choosing faithfulness over convenience, commitment over comfort, purpose over pressure. When belief fuels consistency, Growth becomes sustainable, discipline becomes meaningful, and progress becomes a natural expression of trust in something greater than yourself. Intentional choices shape identity because who you become is not defined by isolated moments, but by repeated decisions made with awareness. Identity is formed gradually through the choices you make when options are presented and directions are open. Every choice, no matter how small it appears, casts a vote for the person you are becoming. When choices are made intentionally, they align actions with values and direction with purpose. Many people live on autopilot, allowing habits, emotions, and circumstances to dictate behavior. Over time, this lack of intention creates an identity built by default rather than design. Intentional living interrupts that pattern. It requires pausing before reacting, considering consequences before committing, and choosing alignment over convenience. This deliberate approach transforms ordinary decisions into powerful tools for personal growth. Identity is reinforced through repetition. When you consistently choose discipline over distraction, integrity over impulse, and growth over comfort, those choices become part of how you see yourself. You no longer say you value improvement, your actions prove it. Over time, these repeated decisions create internal consistency, where behavior and belief support one another rather than compete. Intentional choices demand self-awareness. You must recognize your patterns, triggers, and tendencies before you can redirect them. Awareness creates responsibility. Once you understand how certain choices move you closer to or further from your goals, neutrality is no longer an option. Intentionality becomes the act of choosing progress, even when the easier path is available. Faith strengthens intentional living by providing a moral compass. It clarifies what matters most and helps prioritize long-term growth over short-term satisfaction. Faith-driven intention moves decisions beyond personal gain and connects them to a greater purpose. This perspective adds weight to everyday choices, turning them into expressions of belief rather than reactions to circumstance. Identity is shaped in private long before it is visible in public. The choices you make when no one is watching carry the most influence. Choosing to prepare instead of procrastinate, to speak with kindness instead of frustration, to remain disciplined instead of distracted builds an internal foundation of integrity. These private victories accumulate, forming a stable sense of self that does not rely on external validation. Intentional choices also protect you from regret. Regret often comes not from what was done, but from what was neglected. By choosing deliberately, you reduce the likelihood of drifting into outcomes you never desired. Even when results are uncertain, intentionality ensures that your actions were aligned with your values, which brings clarity and peace regardless of outcome. As identity strengthens, choices become easier. What once required effort becomes instinctive. You begin to act in alignment with who you are rather than who you are trying to be. This shift reduces internal conflict and increases consistency. Growth becomes sustainable because it flows from identity rather than obligation. Intentional choices also influence how you respond to failure. Instead of allowing setbacks to define you, you view them as data. You adjust without abandoning your values. This resilience is a product of identity rooted in intention rather than outcome. You remain committed to growth even when progress is uneven. Every day offers countless opportunities to choose intentionally. How you start your morning, how you manage your time, how you treat others, how you respond to pressure. These decisions may seem minor, but together they create a pattern. That pattern becomes character, and character becomes identity. By choosing with purpose, you take ownership of who you are becoming and ensure that your life reflects not chance, but design. Growth happens when no one is watching, because real development is built in private long before it is revealed in public. The moments that shape you most are often the ones that receive the least recognition. Applause can affirm growth, but it cannot create it. Transformation requires solitude, discipline, and commitment in spaces where validation is absent. When no one is watching, your true priorities are exposed. There is no audience to impress, no standard to perform for except the one you set for yourself. These private moments test your integrity and commitment. Do you still prepare when no one will see the effort? Do you still practice when there is no immediate reward? Do you still choose growth when comfort is available? The answers to these questions determine the depth of your development. Private growth builds a strong foundation. Skills sharpen in repetition, not recognition. Character strengthens in consistency, not applause. Confidence forms through preparation, not performance. What looks like natural talent in public is usually the result of disciplined effort in private. People often admire the outcome without seeing the hours of quiet work that made it possible. Faith deepens the value of unseen growth. It reminds you that your efforts are not wasted simply because they are unnoticed. Faith affirms that purpose does not require an audience. When you believe that growth has meaning beyond public approval, you are more willing to invest in the process, even when it feels lonely. This belief sustains discipline when external motivation disappears. Unseen growth also builds self-respect. When you honor commitments without external pressure, you strengthen trust in yourself. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through regardless of circumstance. This internal trust becomes a source of stability and resilience. You no longer depend on encouragement to continue because your standards are internally driven. The absence of an audience removes distractions. Without the pressure to impress, you can focus on mastering fundamentals. You can slow down, reflect, and refine. Growth in private allows space for mistakes without embarrassment. It encourages experimentation and learning without fear of judgment. These conditions accelerate development because they prioritize progress over appearance. Growth without witnesses also protects humility. When improvement happens quietly, ego has less opportunity to interfere. You are less tempted to compare yourself to others and more focused on your own path. This humility keeps growth healthy and sustainable. It prevents burnout and discouragement that often come from chasing recognition instead of mastery. Many people abandon growth because they equate silence with stagnation. They assume that if no one notices their effort, it must not matter. This belief undermines long-term development. Growth often requires seasons of invisibility. These seasons are not punishment, they are preparation. What you build in private determines how well you can carry responsibility when visibility increases. Consistency in unseen moments compounds. Each private choice reinforces the next. Studying when no one is watching makes preparation natural. Practicing when no one applauds makes excellence habitual. Choosing discipline over distraction in private strengthens resolve in public. Over time, these unseen actions shape identity and capacity. Growth that happens when no one is watching produces depth. It creates strength that does not rely on external validation. When challenges arise and pressure increases, you draw from reserves built in solitude. You respond with confidence, not because you are naturally gifted, but because you are thoroughly prepared. The willingness to grow in obscurity is a sign of maturity. It reflects understanding that true success is not immediate recognition, but lasting impact. When you commit to growth without an audience, you build something real, something stable, something that does not collapse when attention fades, proving that the most meaningful progress is often made in silence. Honor the potential placed within you by recognizing that your abilities, desires, and aspirations were not assigned randomly. Potential is a responsibility before it is a privilege. It represents what you have been entrusted with and what is expected to be developed, not buried or ignored. To honor that potential is to take ownership of your growth and refuse to live beneath your capacity. Many people underestimate themselves, not because they lack ability, but because they fail to acknowledge what has already been placed inside them. Doubt, fear, and comparison can distort self-perception and silence ambition. Honoring potential begins with awareness. You must first believe that there is something within you worth cultivating. This belief becomes the foundation for effort, discipline, and perseverance. Potential demands action. It does not respond to intention alone. Dreams without effort remain unrealized possibilities. Honoring what is within you requires consistent investment through learning, practice, and discipline. Each step taken toward improvement is an act of respect toward your abilities. Neglect, procrastination, and complacency slowly diminish what could have been developed through care and commitment. Faith plays a vital role in honoring potential because it reframes ability as stewardship. What you have is not solely for personal gain, but for meaningful contribution. Faith encourages humility by reminding you that gifts are given with purpose. It also instills courage by assuring you that you are equipped for the path set before you. This perspective transforms growth from self-promotion into service. Honoring potential also requires patience. Growth does not happen instantly, and ability does not mature overnight. There will be seasons where effort feels unrewarded and progress appears slow. In these moments, honoring potential means continuing to invest even when validation is absent. It means trusting the process and believing that development is happening beneath the surface. Fear is one of the greatest threats to potential. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of inadequacy can all prevent you from fully engaging your abilities. Honoring potential requires confronting these fears rather than surrendering to them. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Each time you act in courage, you expand your capacity and strengthen confidence. Potential is also shaped by choices. The environments you choose, the habits you maintain, and the influences you allow all affect development. Honoring what is within you means protecting it from distractions that drain energy and relationships that diminish belief. It requires setting standards that support growth rather than undermine it. Self-discipline is an expression of honor. When you manage your time, energy, and focus intentionally, you signal that your abilities matter. Discipline creates structure for growth and consistency for improvement. Without discipline, potential remains unfocused and scattered. With discipline, it gains direction and momentum. Honoring potential does not mean striving for perfection. It means committing to progress. It means being willing to learn from mistakes rather than being paralyzed by them. Each failure becomes information that refines ability rather than evidence of inadequacy. This mindset allows growth to continue without being derailed by setbacks. When you honor the potential placed within you, you align your actions with your calling. You stop waiting for permission and start taking responsibility. You understand that growth is not optional but necessary. By choosing to develop what has been entrusted to you, you ensure that your life reflects intention, purpose, and faithful stewardship of the gifts you have been given. Become better, not different, is a call to growth rooted in authenticity rather than imitation. Many people chase change by trying to become someone else, adopting personalities, habits, or paths that do not align with who they truly are. This pursuit often leads to frustration and inconsistency because it is built on comparison rather than self-awareness. Real growth does not require abandoning your identity. It requires refining it. Becoming better means enhancing what already exists within you. It is about sharpening strengths, addressing weaknesses, and elevating standards without losing your essence. When you aim to become different, you measure success by how far you can move away from who you are. When you aim to become better, you measure success by how faithfully you are developing who you were meant to be. Comparison is the enemy of authentic growth. It convinces you that your progress must look like someone else's to be valid. This mindset creates pressure to perform rather than to improve. Becoming better shifts focus inward. It asks what needs to be strengthened, what needs to be refined, and what habits no longer serve your purpose. This internal focus produces sustainable growth because it aligns with your natural inclinations and values. Faith reinforces this principle by affirming that each person is uniquely designed. Growth is not about copying someone else's journey, but stewarding your own. Faith encourages gratitude for individuality while inspiring responsibility to develop it fully. When you trust that your path has purpose, you are less tempted to chase identities that were never meant for you. Becoming better requires honesty. You must be willing to confront areas where improvement is needed without self-condemnation. This honesty creates clarity. Instead of pretending to be someone you are not, you work on becoming more disciplined, more focused, more patient, and more consistent. These improvements enhance your character without erasing your individuality. Growth rooted in authenticity is more resilient. When challenges arise, you are not trying to maintain an image. You are strengthening a foundation. You do not feel the need to perform for approval because your progress is self-defined. This resilience allows you to adapt without losing direction and to evolve without losing identity. Becoming different often leads to inconsistency because it relies on external influence. Trends change, opinions shift, and standards fluctuate. Becoming better relies on internal standards that remain steady. You grow based on values rather than validation. This stability makes discipline easier and progress more meaningful. Small improvements become powerful when they are aligned with who you are. Refining how you communicate, how you manage your time, how you respond to pressure, and how you serve others gradually elevates your impact. These changes may not be dramatic, but they are transformative because they are authentic. Becoming better also deepens self-respect. Each intentional improvement reinforces trust in yourself. You begin to see growth as a responsibility rather than an obligation. This shift strengthens confidence and reduces the urge to compare. You recognize that your journey does not need to resemble anyone else's to be valuable. The pursuit of becoming better honors continuity. It respects where you started while committing to where you are going. It acknowledges past experiences without being limited by them. Growth becomes an extension of your identity rather than a replacement for it. When you commit to becoming better, your progress becomes sustainable, your discipline becomes personal, and your growth becomes aligned with purpose. You stop striving to fit someone else's mold and start refining your own, allowing your life to reflect improvement that is genuine, intentional, and deeply rooted in who you are meant to be.